Live from New York City, it's the Gary Null Show. And now, your host, Gary Null.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Null. Nice to have you with us today. We're going to talk about how new insights into how sleep helps the brain to reorganize itself. University of Surrey did the research on that. And then we're going to look at how a simple mineral, zinc, can halt the growth of cancer cells. University of Texas. And then we're going to look at how there are new insights on a group of natural chemicals called phytochemicals that can help stop Alzheimer's, even prevent it. Central University of Punjab in India, and how genetically modified soybean oil can be a problem and is harmful to liver function, University of California. And also we'll look at how frequent saunas keep your blood pressure in check, University of Eastern Finland, and a lot more. Then we're going to take a look at Lee Camp telling us what we should have known about the problems in Puerto Rico prior to the hurricane, what I've shared, and I'll give my own insights, and what are the lessons to be learned. Then I'm going to open that up for Talkback, where you'll have an opportunity to call in and share your points of view. Following that, there is a person who is angry and wants to share their insights that brought them to their anger. And he did a little commentary. I'm only going to play a few minutes of it, called The United States of Stupid. Really? With all of our college graduates and all of our sacred institutions of higher education, do you really think we're stupid? Maybe. We can agree or disagree. We're going to hear what he has to say. Then, it's flu season. They're promoting the flu vaccine. A board-certified physician tells us, before you get it, understand it's not as effective as we've been led to believe. So we'll hear what they have to say. So you see, we have a lot to share today. I don't think I'll have time to do some commentaries by Robert Hunziker from Counterpunch on America's lockup complex. And then following that, from News Analysis, Mark Carlin from Truth Out on how the United States government and our banks and our prison industrial complex and corrupt officials and businesses and law enforcement and racists and the CIA all profit from illegal drugs, because any responsible, reasonable person would say we have completely, utterly failed with a war on drugs. Now, that does not mean you support the use of drugs. I've never taken a drug in my life. I support the legalization. I support getting every person convicted of a nonviolent crime who's used drugs or sold drugs out of prison, expunging their records so they can start over. It's not a disease, and we've profited by making it a disease. But I'll go into my own commentary on that and then open it up for your feedback. So those are the issues we're going to take on today. Let us begin, and as always, we begin with the latest on health and healing. We all need a good night's sleep. In fact, I was giving a lecture this morning, and the lecture was based upon what happens when you work at night. And a person who works at Harlem Hospital overnight said that he finds that he has trouble with infections. He gets colds and flus regularly, even when it's summertime, and he shouldn't. He has all these challenges going on. Does the fact that he works at night, does that contribute? And I said it could. In fact, working the night shift can take as much as 8 years off your lifespan. Even if everything else were, even if you had a good diet and exercise, that's how deadly working at night is. And yet he said, well, he had no choice. I said, we always have a choice. We may not believe we have a choice, but we do. And then at the end of the day, you have to put yourself in this position. Your health and longevity, because you're surrendering it by not getting a good night's sleep, versus the economic income that you get, or some sense of satisfaction, or some commitment Well, you got to work overnight. No, you don't. So here's the deal. When you're not getting a good night's sleep, the less sleep you get from not being healthy, the shorter your lifespan. I wished it were not the case, but it is, and we have to face that reality. So let's say that you don't work overnight, but you stay up late at night, or you're watching television, or you're on your computer, or you're on your cell phone. Irrespective of why, you are shortening your lifespan. It's very important to set a time when you can go to sleep, get up refreshed. You're going to live a longer life. But here's something else. A study has given new insights into how sleep contributes to brain plasticity, which means the ability of our brain to change and reorganize itself. When you get a good night's sleep, you are creating the chemical basis in the brain for holding your memories in place, actually expanding on the capacity to have memories. So better memories, better ability to do things, because almost everything we do is based upon memorizing what we've done in the past. So that will help people with cognition, a better alertness, better facility for speaking. I mean, think how many people once learned a language and then haven't used it and they forgot it. Well, this keeps all that memory bank more fluid, more current. There's a simple mineral that used to be very popular in the 1970s. Then a whole lot of other minerals, mainly magnesium, took its place. It's zinc. According to the University of Texas, zinc can significantly inhibit the proliferation of esophageal cancer cells. And previous studies have shown that zinc is essential for maintaining our human health and protects the esophagus from cancer. However, it's never been fully understood why zinc has the ability to prevent cancer in the esophagus. In this study, a team led by Professor Pan, a professor of nursing at the University of Texas College of Nursing and Health and Innovation, and a noted esophageal cancer researcher, discovered that this simple, inexpensive mineral selectively halts the growth of cancer cells, but not normal esophageal epithelial cells. And they published it in the FASEB Scientific Journal, which stands for, by the way, the Federation of American Societies for Experimental Biology, or FASEB. If you don't think this is important, recognize this, that esophageal cancer is the sixth leading cause of human cancer deaths around the world. That's according to the National Cancer Institute. So it's important. Also, so many people are concerned about Alzheimer's. And I work with people with Alzheimer's. I've done a lot of research on Alzheimer's. In fact, I'm working with some people with Alzheimer's as we speak, even today. Even today, I went out on the road. Everything started yesterday. I'm at a health support group right now, a retreat. And I didn't meet any of the people, didn't know any of them before they arrived. I don't know what they have. But whatever they bring, I try to help them enhance their well-being. And I took them out on a country walk. And when we got back, which was 3 miles, but they could have gone a shorter distance. We say, all right, you're at a half-mile mark, you can turn around. You're at a mile mark, you can turn around. Or at a 1.5 mile mark, and that's where we turn around and come back. And this woman comes up to me, and she said, I just thought you'd like to know that something really good happened this morning. I said, what's that? She says, my husband, who has advanced Alzheimer's, he didn't use his cane. I said, would he normally? Oh, yeah, every movement he makes every day. Why didn't he? I don't know. He was just feeling so good yesterday, but today he didn't use his cane, and he walked 3 miles. And how old's your husband? He's 93. You never know what's possible when you're in nature. As I've said many times, let nature be a part of your healing process. If that means going to a park, if it means going to a botanical garden, now we're heard all over the world, not just New York. But whenever you can get out into nature is so important. I can recall back in the 1970s, as many of you, starting in 1971 and 2, and for the next 14 years, from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and even beyond that up to Halloween, if the weather was nice, every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, people could come up and learn all about homesteading, growing fruits and vegetables, and learning how to be back to the land. But they brought their children. And I had all these rescued animals, and these were animals that had been dropped off, sometimes no information at all. And other times you could see where animals had been abused and they were fearful. And it takes time and patience and a lot of love to get an animal to trust you again. And so these were the animals that were on the 50 acres. There was 50 acres. And with a 4-acre lake. And all the animals were just running loose, which is what they should be doing in their life. And the people would bring their kids, and the kids would just be dumbstruck when this gorgeous little heifer would come over to them with those big, beautiful eyes, and so gentle, and put their head up against the kids. And without exception, every kid would just wrap their arms around the little heifer's neck and want to give it kisses, and it could be a little Jenny, which is a little female donkey, and they're just beyond adorable. They're just so cute. And it could be a little goat, which are little mischievous magicians. They can disappear and jump. I actually watched a goat once, little goat, jump on the back of a sheep that then allowed him to jump on the back of a horse to jump over a fence. They are always trying to get out of someplace. And they're so much fun. So the kids spent the whole day learning about nature, getting their hands in the soil, went over and showed them what's at the bottom of a lake. Now, this was not a deep one. And so I took a shovel and a bucket, and I went in the water, and I dug down, and I filled up a bucket, and I brought it up, and 3 or 4 buckets are there. All the kids are there. I said, okay, come over and stick your hands in this. So they all came over and were holding it. I said, now, you know what you're holding in that? That's some of the richest soil in the world. That's all biodegradable matter. And that's what you want to put around your plants. You let it dry out, and then you put that around the bed, and that goes into the ground, and that helps a tree or a plant or tomatoes, whatever you're growing, become much richer. And I said, it's important we get our hands in the dirt. Growing up, I always was on a farm, milking cows, and your immune system's stronger when you're exposed to that kind of microorganism. We over-sanitize our society today, and so we don't develop our full immune capacity. But what was important is when kids simply were in nature and how much they appreciated everything that they had not been exposed to in their suburban or urban environment. Just getting down and just paying very close attention and seeing all the little creatures under their feet. Just lay on the grass and just watch, see what crawls by you. Things you never see otherwise. And then taking them by different plants, have them close their eyes and say, all right, now hold hands, we're going to walk. And suddenly, what's that smell? Well, they didn't know what jasmine smelled like until they had smelled. They had never smelled it before. We made them a jasmine tea with that, an iced tea. And then what's this? That's honeysuckle. Oh, you can actually taste the honeysuckle. You pull out the little red spore and put it between your teeth and now gently bring it out. Oh, it has kind of a nice sweet flavor, but it also has that wonderful aroma to it also. It's just glorious to see what children do when they're exposed to a beautiful, natural environment. So, as often as you can, get to the country. give yourself an opportunity, especially if you have children, get them there. We all need green time. And the more green time you have, the longer you're going to live, because it's a very important part of health. Not just now. Go back through time, and you'll see those cultures that live close to the earth. I was just talking with someone this morning about this, about the healthiest, oldest group of people I've ever interviewed is one day when I was down at WMCA Studios, and I was on the air 6 days a week, 4 hours on Saturday, and then I would finish, and there would always be a large group upstairs in the conference room. Sometimes 20 or as many as 40 people would come every Saturday, and we would sort them out. I would get upwards of 5,000 to 10,000 letters per week, and we would categorize them. Are people asking for recipes? Because I'd offer free recipes. Other people wanted information, maybe on arthritis. So everything on arthritis, everything on heart disease, referrals. We had a giant list of doctors and these people would we didn't have computers. People would just handwrite everything, and then I would spend the next 3 or 4 hours just answering each of the questions. And it was so much fun. But also at that time, there was a movement, and there was a kind of like back to the earth movement going on. And people at that point were wanting to know where the best places to go. You know, is Woodstock the best place around? And we helped to inspire people to get as much time as they could out of the city, to start growing produce or support local farmers. As I said at that time, you may not be able to have the circumstances to live on a farm or a sustainable community, but that doesn't mean that you can't get a group of people, go up to a farmer and pay them in advance for all the things you want them to grow. Then go up each week and get a box of food. The farmer's got their money in advance. They're growing something for you specifically, so you're going to only get things that you want to eat, and it helps everybody. It was a very important time. And we could redo that again today if we realized how important it was to get out of the cities and get back to nature. Anyhow, one of the insights that I came up with, I was going to go further, but I don't want to digress off too much of my point here. There's a Central University of Punjab, and they found that something we don't use in the United States for Alzheimer's is ginkgoloids. Gink, G-I-N-K, goloids, G-O-L-I-D-E-B. Now, there are different types of nutrients, and these are phytonutrients. And this ginkgoloid B attenuates amyloid B1 to 42 induced oxidative damage. What that means in lay language, it helps prevent the plaque from being laid down in the brain, called amyloid plaque, that leads to Alzheimer's. So ginkgo biloba, is very important for you. By combining ginkgo, 200 milligrams, with the very important major nutrient component of curry. And that is so, so important to have. Well, let's say if you were suffering from cancer or some bad autoimmune condition, the turmeric, you're looking at 5,000 to 10,000 milligrams a day. And the curcumin, which is the active component, in concentrated oil. If you don't have it in concentrated oil, remember, here's the rule. If you get your curcumin in oil, you're going to get a higher, much higher usability, bioavailability. But if it's a powder, primarily coming from turmeric, you must always take the essential fatty acid at the same time. One provides the carrier, the essential fatty acid, to get the turmeric and the active ingredient, curcumin, into the cell. That's why I always recommend the curcumin by itself. In any case, you take these two together. Take ginkgo with curcumin, and you're doing yourself a lot of good for the brain. And finally, University of California found that the genetically modified soybean oil is harmful to the liver. So one more reason not to be using it. Oh, and by the way, University of Eastern Finland says that if we have saunas on a regular basis, we reduce the risk of elevated blood pressure. And that was a population-based study, and they're suggesting 4 to 7 times a week. In our society, a person is lucky to have 4 saunas in their lifetime. And this was published in the American Journal of Hypertension, which is one of the most respected journals. Brought down blood pressure. So get your sauna in. I'm Gary Null. That's the latest on health and healing. Back in a moment. Please stay with us.
My head is in a spin, my feet don't touch the ground. Because you're near to me, my head goes round and round. My knees are shaking, baby, my heart it beats like a drum. It feels like I'm in love.
I'd like to have everyone listening right now realize that you can always send in your questions or comments, and they'll get to me. Send them to PRN, that stands for Progressive Radio Network, PRNstudio at gmail.com. And that way even though I'm on the road for the next month and doing a lot of filming, doing a lot of work helping people start the new recipe, the new cookbook starts tomorrow evening. After everyone goes to bed, I'll be going into the kitchens and designing. And for me, the fun is taking something that doesn't exist and making a piece of art from it and then photographing it. And that's what I do with my cookbooks. And this is for a cookbook for the spring. All new gourmet vegan recipes and a lot of raw recipes, all meant for healing the body. But in my world, there's no reason that food should just be slopped on a plate. It should be a piece of art. And just like gourmet food is, except that gourmet food is not always healthy, this is. So this is going to be a very creative time. I want to mention also that we are full. We've had a lot of people call. There's no room this week. I'm sorry. I'm doing this as a fundraiser to help our sister station WBAI in New York, where I've been on for 41 years. Here's the good news. We have, even with some cancellations for this past week, we still earned enough to pay for all the premiums from the spring drive, and those have all been paid for and have been mailed out. There may be, of course, some people who haven't gotten their premium yet, but it should be on the way if it hasn't gotten to you yet. I'm very happy to say that there's not a single premium not paid for, and that's how we did it. And I'm happy to contribute to that. We did get a cancellation for 2 weeks from now, and there was a couple that called in that could not make it. That happens. So we have room for 2 people, not for this week and not for next week, but the following week. If you'd like to come to a retreat and enjoy yourself and get healthy and be around nature, 2 people, that's all we have room for. And again, this is a fundraiser for the station. You can call Luann Panesi at 973-766-2214, 973-766-2214. By the way, there's an awful lot of medical doctors here. Wow. I've asked them not to identify themselves. Ask them just, observe, because they're all trying to figure out how in the dickens all these wonderful things happen to people in a week. They can't wrap their mind. One guy, he's in from California, board-certified physician. He said, I said, why are you here? He said, I hear from my patients, and I hear when I download your show, people who have made changes in their life, and we don't see that. We never see this, ever. And I'm just curious how in the heck this happens. I said, fine. I said, but you're not going to learn from a linear textbook way. It doesn't work that way. This is quantitative adjustments, major transformations, something that no doctor in America is trained for. Now, if you were in India, or you were in China, Japan, or if you're in Africa, there is that kind of respect for nature and respect for energy. Not here. So it depends upon the mind you bring, whether or not you're going to learn anything. But we got oncologists, we got cardiologists, all kinds of doctors. but you wouldn't recognize them. But they were out there sweating today. They were the least in shape. In fact, it was funny. Two of them had to be, Luann had to call for a car, and we always have a car on standby when they're on the road. And so in comes three of them. And I said, well, how'd you all fare? Oh, yeah, it's hot. Well, it was hot for everyone. Everyone else made it in, including a 93-year-old man. Wonder what they're doing. You haven't been. So let's just see at the end of this week what they learned. It'll be fun. I want to take you over now and play you something I think is very important. And that is a different person's look at a disaster. Now, after his commentary, I'll share mine, and then I'm going to open up our phone for yours. This is Lee Camp talking about the disaster that just happened in Puerto Rico. Okay, I'm sorry, that's taking a moment there to load. So while it's loading, why don't we go over and hear from a person who thinks some Americans are stupid, and I'm interested why he would think that on this particular issue. And you can also address his thoughts in your Talkback segment.
Of stupid. Not only have we become it, we're becoming it more. We are profoundly contaminated by the stupid who have more stupid, the stupid who keep perpetuating stupid, the stupid who allow stupid, who applaud stupid, who encourage stupid, who celebrate stupid, and reflect and repeat stupid. Stupid in gradations and levels that you can't even imagine. And when it comes to politics, history, profoundly, supremely, cosmically, breathtakingly stupid. The Babe Ruth, the Pelé, the Muhammad Ali of stupid. I mean, you name it. And it's one of the biggest problems that serves as perhaps one of the greatest impediments and roadblocks to this great republic ever advancing to what it could be. And stupid transcends every gender or cross-gender, hybrid gender, every race, every demographic, every factor, every socioeconomic stratum. In fact, the most stupid, the worst stupid, is the rich and the educated, because they don't know they're stupid. They feel like they're vaccinated or immunized from stupid. They feel for some particular reason that they are not subject to that. When it comes to American politics, when it comes to what's going on right now, Trump has tapped into something, a potential for stupid, which I always knew was there, but I never knew it was at this level. He went into the very souls and psyches and personas of individuals and inspired a stupidity that is so profound, so deep, so full, so plenary. It never ceases to amaze me every single day. Let's take the latest. Civil War. Okay. The Civil War. Here's a problem. I'm not going to go through this again because you've heard everything about it. The Civil War involves some things which Americans do not have because they're stupid. One, history. If you don't know the history of something, you can't comment on it. You can't laugh at a joke if you don't know the setup. If I give you the punchline and you don't know the setup, it doesn't make any sense. That's what commenting on history is without you knowing history. It doesn't make any sense. And what's funny is that because we're so stupid, we don't say, now wait a minute, I really shouldn't be commenting on this because I don't really know anything about the Civil War or Robert E. Lee or the Emancipation Proclamation. We'll spill this, or whatever the hell it is. I don't know anything about that. I'm going to wait. I'm going to do a little research. Oh, no. We're so stupid, we feel somehow cosmically imbued in the history of something because we're American, which leads me, I should say, to another version of this. American exceptionalism. Americans believe that because they are American, because they are blessed, because they live in this wonderful republic, that they don't have to travel, read, know anything about anything. Nothing. In fact, They don't care. Americans have the fewest passports per capita. Ask your friend today. Today, do this. Most of you who are watching it are American. Ask, may I see your passport? Or, when did your passport expire? Don't ask them if they have one, because they'll lie. But just see. You'll be amazed. And that means, really, the first thing. Number one, they don't need a passport. They don't want one. They don't care for it. Or they don't travel. It's just something that... And you don't necessarily have to travel. Believe me, you don't have to. But what I'm saying is that there are people who don't travel because they say, look, I'd love to travel, but I can't, or I'm working, or whatever. No. There are other people who say, I don't need to travel because I'm an American, and I live here, and that's it. And I don't need to worry about this, and I don't go anyplace else, and the hell with it, and who cares? Unbelievable. History, not a clue. This past week or so, I was talking about neo-Nazis. Oh, and let me just say something. Lest you think this is some pro-Trump speech or disquisition, oh, you're wrong. Oh, this goes both sides. Trump himself, bless his heart, can show amazing brilliance and profound stupidity. Take that ridiculous Afghanistan speech. Either, see, I can't tell with him sometimes. Is he brilliant? Does he think he's conning me? Because that is stupid if you think you are. But what's stupid is the people who say, hey, that was a great speech. I have a friend of mine in the news business. Serious character. And he says, Trump really finally spoke. He really came to the plate, or he really... it's like, you idiot. You're stupid. You don't know what he said. He basically said, I'm not changing anything. I'm capitulating. Do you know anything about Afghanistan? No. You know where it is? No. You know anything about it? No. Well, why are you commenting? Because you're stupid. Because you don't know. Because you feel like you can just comment. Let me tell you something. I've heard more intelligent conversation regarding the McGregor-Mayweather fight on my birthday, no less, than anything else. I mean, if you call up that Mike Francesa show, Mike Francesa, to me, might be one of the top 10 most uninteresting people I have ever heard. I don't think I've ever heard 30 seconds of his show. He's a big sports guy here in New York. And just mindless sports. But he knows his sports. He knows it. He's boring. He's horrible. But knows his sports. Sports shows know a lot. Nobody would ever dare to call up a sports show and say something using the same amount of stupidity and ignorance that they use and employ when it comes to politics. You would never hear that on a sports show. You try that, you won't even get past the hello part, because sports conversations require, for some particular reason, a different level of understanding. Now let me add something. Stupid is up here. You have stupid. And then stupid is crazy. We got the crazy part. And crazy is it's kind of a version of that. It's a subsidiary of stupid. Then we have the generically effed up. I know there might be some kids listening, but you know what I mean. I mean, royally effed up, generically effed up, mildly. Then you have stupid plus crazy plus unstable. Then throw in immature. Then throw in naive. Now, these all add kind of pastels. You know when you do a picture on Instagram and you have color, brightness. By the way, this morning, I ran into a buddy of mine, and I shook hands with him. I haven't seen him in a while. And he wears this horrible, it's like pimp cologne.
In some way, I'm sure that we have all been around people who manifested some of the qualities he was just mentioning. Now, I'll share my own thoughts after you share yours. I'd like to have you call in a moment, because I want you to hear Lee Camp. We got it working now. And so here's the idea. Are we really a nation of stupid people? Or are we a nation of intentionally misinformed or intentionally uninformed individuals? Can you be bright in one part of your life and stupid in another part of your life? Have we manifested a certain quality of functionality so we can be perceived as a together person because we've all learned to master our jobs, our crafts? We do it well. But what about on all the other issues that are also important, including our body politic? Why is it that between 62 and 65 million people voted for the two candidates, but those people could not possibly have thought that either Clinton or Trump would have righted the wrongs of our nation in the world, because they were both pro-war, pro-military industrial complex, pro-big pharma, pro-big banks, pro-big treaties, pro-big the pharmaceutical industry. There's nothing populist on either side. So how could you vote for someone knowing that outside of their personalities, they were misfit for the job? There was also 100 million people who didn't vote at all, the largest single group. Were they educated and realized that their vote would not have mattered? Well, it would have had they voted for Jill Stein. Why didn't they? Why, if you were completely disillusioned with the corruptness of our political system, why wouldn't you use that in a positive way? But they didn't. Is that just stupid? Do they think that because they didn't vote, there won't be a consequence? When you have 100 million people who don't vote, the largest single group of Americans are independents, yet there was no sense of organization. Is that stupid or is it hubris? What are your thoughts? Our talkback number is 888-874-4888. That's 888-874-4888. And those little blips in there, that's where he was using profanities, and we edited those out. Now let's listen to Lee Camp about Puerto Rico.
Hurricane Maria slammed into Puerto Rico, devastating the whole island, right? You know that, because the corporate media, that's what they do. They do a good job of covering disaster porn. They are on it. They are in there, disaster porn 24/7. They love it.
Adjectives don't do justice to what Hurricane Maria did to Puerto Rico or to what is happening right now to the more than 3 million people who live there. But a few accurate ones are apocalyptic and devastating.
That is true. Puerto Rico is devastated. But what they won't tell you is this. It's because of Wall Street and corporate America and Congress. Puerto Rico is an American territory, right? It became a territory in 1898. We plundered the sugar from them. We turned them into a tax haven for our corporations, never allowing them to develop and build up an economy of their own. We then took that tax haven status away, took the corporate benefits away, leaving them with nothing. It's colonialism 101. Just this year, they became the largest bankruptcy case ever in the American bond market history. 46% of Puerto Rico is below the poverty line, 11% unemployment. And this is all proof that austerity never works. Cutting back on all the resources a society is supposed to provide does not help an economy bounce back. So in order to deal with the financial collapse in Puerto Rico, the U.S. did the same thing that we did in Flint, Michigan. In Flint, Michigan, they replaced the actual elected officials with an emergency manager, an unelected official who then guts their society. Take away the democracy. That's why these cities and towns and colonies and territories are struggling. There's too much democracy. Now, we know how that ended up in Flint, Michigan, right? Flint switched the water supply, poisoning the city. Just this week, we found out Flint's fertility rates decreased by 12% among Flint women, while fetal death rates rose by 58%. 58% higher because of this lead poisoning. The same held true in Puerto Rico. The U.S. Congress mandated an unelected fiscal oversight board. Many Puerto Ricans refer to it as the junta that made all of the decisions for Puerto Rico's economy. Colonialism 101. But CNN won't mention any of that. They'll just talk about how tough Puerto Rico has it after this hurricane and how great the people are.
With textbook hospitality. Mucho gracias. She takes the time to make us coffee. A few miles up the road, more kindness and much more misery.
we don't show them the same kindness, right, that apparently they're showing us. Wall Street, via vulture funds, has gutted the Puerto Rican economy. They're literally called vulture funds. They circle poor countries and poor communities, and then they go down and rip the innards out. They gut every remaining dime out of the people. They force them to cut medical care and education and infrastructure, all the things you need if you're going to survive a natural disaster like a massive hurricane. Read Greg Palast's book called Vulture's Picnic. Now, he's not talking about Puerto Rico in that book. He's talking about mostly Africa, but the idea is the same. They buy up a country or territory's debts and then they rip it apart in order to collect the money that is now due to them. In one famous example, they took the money allotted for AIDS medication to the dying people in Africa. That was what they collected.
As an American, I wonder, how do Puerto Ricans feel about being American territory in times like this? Do you think America will come save you? Do you hope they will?
See.
I wouldn't look to us to help you. It's like looking to a fox to help the hen that has a broken leg. Going to the fox doctor to help the lame hen. America is the one that made sure their money went to American bondholders before doing things like building up their infrastructure and building up their society. We're the ones who made sure that their unemployment was this high. We helped create an economy where 46% are below the poverty line. Come on, Anderson, talk about the 1984 provision that says that Puerto Rico cannot declare bankruptcy. Everywhere else in the U.S., you can declare Chapter 9 bankruptcy really bad. This was passed in 1984, put in by Strom Thurmond, and no one can say why. And so this is why hedge funds, vulture funds, find Puerto Rico so attractive. They can't fucking declare bankruptcy. They can't do anything. They just have to sit there giving you money. And hedge funds love this. Funds love chaos. It's good for them. It's bad for human beings. This is the catastrophic system that we've set up. So now that their society is destroyed by this hurricane, even more than it was by the economic hurricane, what is America gonna do to help out our neighbors, our friends, the territory of Puerto Rico?
We're 1,000 miles from Miami. The only way to get aid in here is by boat or by plane.
We just can't get aid to them. It's funny how easy it is to get in there when we want to exploit them, when we want to steal their sugar, pharmaceuticals. Until a decade ago, they made like all our pharmaceuticals, so much so that there was actually a town nicknamed the town of Viagra, because all of our Viagra was made in that city in Puerto Rico. Because the corporate benefits that they were given were so high. But we can't get the aid, I don't know. Now that Puerto Rico isn't providing us hard-ons. So what have you done for me lately? You used to give me bonus. Now, nothing.
Large parts of the island, very difficult for reporters to get to, and certainly relief efforts.
Parts of the island are very difficult for reporters to get to, including parts of the island's history. Anything that happened more than a couple of weeks ago. The roads are all fucked. Can't access the part that shows that the U.S. Congress, Wall Street, and hedge funds and the bond market are what destroyed this beautiful country of 3 million people and then left them there to have a hurricane decimate what was left of their infrastructure. CNN, for acting like you give a shit about these people. You've got all the access and the money and the time and the ability and you show up and you go, let's not tell them the full story. Let's not actually give people information in order to change our society for the better. Let's just act like this and climate change, ecological destruction, and imperialism. Let's act like the results of it just fell out of the sky yesterday. We had no idea where any of this came from. No idea as we see all the ramifications, disaster generation that we've created. This is your creation. You corporate media. That's all I've got for you today. Get this story out there, as I've said before.
That was Lee Camp. Do you agree or disagree? Would you like to add your own insight into what Lee has to share? Our number for that talkback, as well as are we stupid or do we just act stupid? Are we disinclined to even become involved in something out of apathy? Your thoughts. 888-874-4888. 888-874-4888. And I'm going to broaden it out a little bit, not just Puerto Rico. I've been to Puerto Rico many times. I've been to Jamaica over 20 times. I don't hang around the main cities in any of the countries I go to. I go to the countryside. I like to learn the real history of the country and its real body politic and its real agricultural systems and its school systems. When I'm in Jamaica, I like to walk the roads and talk with the people and sit with them and go into the backyards and see what they're growing. And if someone has an illness, how do they treat it? That's how you learn about a people. You don't learn from the books. The books are biased. The books are prejudiced. If you ever read a Filipino book on the history of the Philippines, if that was an American publisher, everything about the Holocaust are taking over the Philippines, the mass graves, the beheadings that we, the American soldiers, did, you won't see. It's been sanitized. The last time I was in Puerto Rico, there was a high point on the mountain that I was on a mountain, which wasn't very high. And I was looking at it, and I said to one of my friends, who is also from Puerto Rico, native Puerto Rican, I said, do you see that they have put no money into the infrastructure of the island? They have not built up the island. The standard of living for only a small percentage is high, for everyone else is very low. And that's when he commented upon his family used to have about 30 acres. And on that 30 acres, they grew enough for all their needs and had extra left over they could sell. That's all gone now. Local sustainability is gone. The crops they did have, sugar, bad, tobacco, bad, and then palm oil, bad, and where historically at least they grew fruits, very little at that point. They've become so reliant upon imports that virtually everything had to be imported in. And in fact, we went to a restaurant, considered a good restaurant, and he said virtually every single thing on this menu is imported, and that's why it's so expensive. I said, well, let's hope that you never have something apocalyptic, because if you do, you're absolutely going to end up on the back end of the wrong position. That was also true in Jamaica. It was true in Cuba. It's true in all the tiny islands, St. Croix, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, U.S. Virgin Islands. All of the islands are now devastated. So it's not can they rebuild. They will rebuild only the infrastructure from the airports and the ports to the hotels, but they won't do anything more than that. They never have. The citizens of all these islands have never meant anything to the people who run the islands. And I remember when I went out for a run, and this guard with a shotgun, there were 3 at this place I was staying, said, "Now, why are you going out on the road?" I said, "Because I run. I'm not afraid of the population. They're not the problem." He said, "Well, you don't know." I said, "Yeah, I do." I said, "Look across the street, right across the street." I said, "You see all those shanties with no windows and no sewer, no toilets, no running water? That's exactly who works in this hotel. I see them each day putting on their black bow ties and their white short-sleeve shirts and their black pants. You don't even allow them to eat a meal in your hotel. You don't allow them to use your laundry that they could use to do their laundry for the clothes they wear. You give them no advantages whatsoever. So anytime they can get an extra tip by taking someone a towel at the beach, that's how they survive. And they have no political power because the multinational corporation that built this and that and every other hotel, they control the body politic and all the body politic and all the islands. There's no exception. Dutch, French, they're all corrupt. Everything in the Caribbean is corrupt. Everything everywhere is corrupt. It just depends upon the consequences of that corruption. So I said, so that's the reality. So I'd go for my run. Now, do you really think that they're going to make whole the people who were living at poverty level to begin with? Not at all. So you can now wipe off the entire Caribbean and all the islands and all the good people who never had political power, never really benefited from any of the tourist industry, and like he was mentioning, like the vulture capitalist, the hedge funds, the equity partnerships, the black pool investors. They're the ones who exploit these people. And if these are the bastions of society, these are the people that sit on PBS's boards, NPR's boards. These are the people that control inordinate amount of power. 888-874-4888 is our number. Let's begin. Let's say hello with Joe from Jamaica. Hi, Joe. Your turn.
Yes, good afternoon, Gary. And I'm going to talk very quick. But one of our problems is we don't teach history in school. So the young people have no real depth in understanding. And that's not their fault. I'd like you to do a show on just who writes on textbooks and how they took serious history and they eliminated it after the Vietnam War. And we also live in segregated communities. We don't know or care about other people. It's part of divide and conquer. And the media doesn't help one bit. And I really wish
the media is, Joe, I will start that tomorrow. I will start doing a little history lesson. I did one last week. Occasionally I do them. I'll just do more of them. Tomorrow I'll give you the real history of the Crusades. How about that? One that you will not see in any textbook. And then maybe the next day or later in the week I'll give you a different history lesson about who profits historically from wars. And so as often as I can fit it into the program, I will fit a different history in, a history for the people. Joe, thank you for your call. I appreciate it.
Okay, and who writes our textbooks? Go into that.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank you, Gary.
You've made valid and salient points. I will address them. Gwen from New York City. Gwen, you're on the air.
I'm actually on the road, and I'm next to a policeman, so I might have to hang up. But what I wanted to say is that I had a fight with my mother this morning about what happened with the 50 people that were shot last night with this hotel. And the reason why we had a fight is because it just seems very strange to me that every time something like this happens, the person who has committed the crime is shot to death before we question them. There's every single time, not one person has been taken out that was still alive so that you can question them about what actually happened. And the story that followed was so crazy that I'm sorry, it just doesn't make any sense to me that a guy who's 65 years old, who's never committed a crime in his life, goes to some hotel that's 35 stories up, starts shooting people. And the other thing that a witness said this morning who was on CNN, and nobody followed this, but he said that there was also a policeman in the crowd who had an automatic weapon who was also shooting. And the witness said the reason why the policeman was shooting is because he thought that the shooter was in the crowd. So I just, I really don't think that I am stupid. And I really can't continue to believe these crazy things that happen with these startling similarities. And it also is very coincidental that now there will be no more conversation about Puerto Rico at all. That's gone now because this is what the CNNs and the MSNBCs, this is what we're all going to be chasing this week. The dogs of the media are going to be chasing this, and no one is going to be asking any of the important questions. I don't understand why you always kill the witness at the crime scene. I don't understand it. So my mother told me I was un-American this morning, and I think that I'm very much an American because any good American will understand that it's your responsibility to question these things. When this kind of criminal action happens over and over again, and there have been several times when they've happened that it is surrounding another issue, which is also important at the same time, and all of a sudden, now all the attention is focused on this new issue. So,
No, Gwen, it's important to have a critical and questioning mind. I would question why did they have to kill Osama bin Laden when they could have shot him in the legs and taken him prisoner and think of the information they could have gotten from him.
Exactly.
But also...
I'm sorry, just one last thing. You brought up Osama bin Laden. I'm so sorry, but when they told us that story, it sounded so preposterous to me because when America kills somebody like Saddam Hussein, we drag the dead picture all over the newspapers. Why was Osama bin Laden immediately dumped into water and nobody even got to see the body or autopsy it or anything? I'm sorry, how stupid do you think that we are? But we are that stupid. You can tell us anything.
Okay, I appreciate the comments you've made. we will continue with some of your thoughts on upcoming programs and even bring on some guests of how vulnerable are we to mass manipulation. We'll continue this conversation. Thank you. I only have time for one more call. Let's say hello to Tom from the Bronx. Tom, your turn.
Hi, Gary. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Anyway, I'd like to say this, that this financial fiasco on Puerto Rico and the storms that came up, which I think were actually brought there by geoengineering, has to do with the gold that's in the soil of Puerto Rico, which is gold flakes by the tons, and the same thing goes for Haiti. So they have to get rid of a lot of people off the island, and they made an attempt to talk to the people that own property there, and they said, come on, we'll make you rich for the gold flakes. Well, they have to do a hydrofracking-like process to get the gold flakes, which means that they'll destroy the land, the soil, and the drinking water. In other words, but somebody will get rich off it, and they were pressing Puerto Rico to pay their this loan that this loan.
Tom, unfortunately, we're out of time. I will pick up some of the things. I would suggest that some of your ideas in the broader context have plausibility. Some I would disagree with, because we already are exploiting the gold in Haiti. In fact, the person who is one of the people overseeing the corporation doing it is Hillary Rodham Clinton's brother, and they didn't have to have a storm. But was this storm in any way impacted by geoengineering? There are people who suggest that the geoengineering contributed to the storm, did not create it, contributed to it. And we will have some geoengineer scientists on to tell us how plausible that is, because geoengineering and manipulation of our weather is proven. That is not a conspiratorial. And but I do not believe in any way, shape, or form that it was the storm was meant as an opportunity to exploit. The people who were exploiting already had $72 billion in unpaid debt to investors in a country who has an aging population. Young people are abandoning the country, doesn't have an infrastructure, has one of the highest unemployment rates in the world, and has no way of maintaining itself. So then we impose an austerity program on top of that. That's a prescription for disaster. However, exploiting resources, whether cobalt or zinc or aluminum, bauxite, from different countries is not conspiratorial. We've been doing that for a long time, and on an upcoming program, I'll give you the true history of one small African country, has one of the highest poverty rates in the world, and yet we get more of a mineral used in cell phones from that country than any place else on earth. And it does not benefit the people of that country. So I thank you for your call, Tom, and I will look forward to sharing more on tomorrow's program. We will have sometimes possibly a little drop in the line because I'm way out in the country and do not have a good internet connection. But if the program suddenly has a little drop and you hear music, please understand that that's because of the location that I'm in, and we'll get right back online as quickly as possible. Have a nice day, everyone.